Kia ora te whānau whānui, nau mai hoki mai ki taupo moana record keepers. It is the 18th of January 2023 and we are here somewhere where I'm not going to tell you because it's on a needs to know basis, and you are in the company of Jeffrey Addison, on the cameras Te Whaitaima TeWhare, and with us our very special friends and manuhiri Michael Richardson and Anthea Johnson. Almost got it right, guys. But we're here, everybody, checking out a pretty amazing endangered plant called a Dactylanthis. First of all,
few years.
Michael, could you just give us a little bit of an introduction to why we've come here and why it's so special in this part of the Ngāhere?
Well, we've come here because this is one of the few areas that we have around Taupo where there are surviving Dactylanthis. There's only a few, 2 or 3 populations that are known about. This is one of them, and within this population there's only very few examples remaining. So this is an area that has had a lot of Dactylanthis in the past, sort of 50, 60, 70 years ago, but unfortunately they were considered quite the curio and collected for mantelpiece displays. The piece that was collected for display was effectively the root of the plant, where it attached to the host tree.
What do you see as
Functionally extinct.
as the roadmap to bringing them back from being functionally extinct in this area? Is there one that you're aware of, Anthea? Could you speak to that?
Absolutely.
Yes.
I think in this case, in the absence of any known female plants, I mean, it's possible that there are some female plants that we just haven't found. But given that the male plants are in such bad state anyway, it's likely that the females have all gone because they tend to die out before the males. So to restore the population, or even to keep it ticking along, we would really need some seed to start reseeding the area, hopefully to get some female plants established. They take quite a long time it's quite a long time to germinate, and then quite a long time to actually reach maturity and actually start reproducing. So it would be a really long-term project. So
would you choose a tree, for example, that you want to seed the female off, and
Yes.
you'd just plant it where the roots are coming
Yes,
out
so
of the tree?
the usual
Or do you
technique.
graft them on? Or?
Oh well, it's pretty hard to get them started, but usually you'll take some seed from a healthy plant, and it might be we'll have to get them from elsewhere, I assume, from preferably a nearby population, so they're fairly similar. And then for reseeding, you'll generally clear an area of ground just of any sort of loose debris. You'll scratch it up a little bit with a bit of a rake, just to kind of loosen up some of the small sort of feeder roots that might be coming off near trees after finding a good sort of area where you do have some of the potential trees. And then you'll often mix the seed with a little bit of sand so it's easier to distribute, and then you'll just distribute it over that sort of maybe 50 by 50 square. And then it's a really good idea to mark where that is, so often we'll put a cage over that as well, and with GPS it and put a tag on it, so we can then come and check in years to
Monitor
come.
the nursery.
Yes, and see if anything actually comes up. It's good to put them on young, growing, healthy plants, because the life cycle of the Dactylanthis is quite long, and some of the preferred host species are not particularly long-lived, only a few decades at the most.
I see right close to here we've got a Pinus contorta growing up, and I know the damage that they do when they get to maturity. So even just it's, I'd say, 10 metres away from these trees, and when that reaches maturity, that will completely change the ecosystem
We're
here.
already getting a lot of cones in a Douglas fir behind, with a lot of cones produced.
Oh yeah, and here as well. That's
Once
another-
they get established, I think it's a Douglas fir based on the cones. And that will really change the understory in here if those if the seedlings from that start popping up.
It's a mossy tuber.
So this is
It's got a lot of moss.
it's a mossy
growing on it,
tuber, and it's growing on down here the root of the host tree.
which we assume is the one just behind.
So that might be this tree.
Gosh, so even when I've been thinking I'm looking for Dactylanthis, I haven't been looking for anything like that.
No, they're really difficult to spot. So here's an example of a let's see if I can put it on a. Here's an example of a bract which has been chewed previously. So you can see it's been grabbed off, and then probably a rat has got into it and gnawed it before it can even open up and release the pollen and the nectar. So that's one of the reasons for having the cages on them, to reduce the browsing that possums particularly and also rats do, which causes a lot of damage, and it means that the pollination is severely reduced.
And you have some pictures there.
Yes, yep. So this is a diagram showing what the
They look a little bit like
tuber looks
succulents,
like.
eh?
Yeah. They're relatively. This is relatively. Just a sec.
Just won't.
Do we have another?
There's one, a little Bractus here.
Yeah, and here's another.
So that's the Bract. They'll typically grow out near the base, and on something this size, if it was healthy, you might get 15 to 20 bracts coming out from it. And because this is the male one, that would then try to pollinate a female in the area.
So how close would you plant the females to here? So
You can't choose what you get.
Yeah.
what do you mean?
You can't
Well, it
seed.
could be male and female. The seed will have male and female, but
Yeah.
you'd try and
So you can't tell when you get seed whether it's male or female.
no.
So
So
you
that,
could be transplanting males here.
yeah, could be more males.
Yeah. I mean, if anything grows, you're doing well. So you're not trying to be too picky about it.
Even just to get more younger plants growing on more younger trees would be good. Even if we can't get any females, just having some surviving males would be good, because I think some of these will be reaching the end of their lives.
If you look up at the canopy, this is getting towards the upper end of this sort of environment that they live in and do well in. So if we're trying to replant this area, this area may only have another 20 years of regenerating to do before they're getting into more mature tree types, which Dactylanthis
So
don't grow on.
have you identified areas where potentially around here
Yes.
that could
Yeah,
could
I
be
think-
nurseries for
Yeah.
There's a lot of-
Dactylanthis?
There's a lot of in areas where you've got you're taking out non-natives, exotics, and then letting the natives regrow.
Yes.
A lot of areas where there are clearings.
Yes.
So that's where you're getting a lot of regrowth. Those are the sort of areas.
On the other side of the road, there's actually quite a lot of area that's got potential host plants,
Less established areas, so they're growing
sort
more
of secondary growth,
It-
which is
Is that on the reserve or off the reserve?
on the reserve.
On the reserve, yeah. But
And
getting
have you identified places off the reserve where that might be possible?
No,
No, mainly because we haven't
most areas
wandered
off the
around.
reserve aren't native.
All these,
But there is a lot of regenerative bush, and again, the time is very good at the moment because they're replanting all the non-farm areas
yeah,
of
that
the
would be ideal.
bush.
Yeah.
The trees typically have to be sort of about 10 years old,
Oh, you can,
at least.
they can be younger as long as they're growing healthily. They can
If
be
we
younger plants
know
as well.
what kind of trees ideally suit them, then we can
Yeah.
put them on the list of
Yeah, that's,
of-
we've got
yeah.
a
trees
good-
to be.
yeah.
We can do this consciously. We might not live to see,
Yeah.
the fruit of it, but if we have to think in decades ahead, you can't just think in.
Yeah, we get it started.
This is
and
definitely decades long just to even see anything that might come out of it, and that's where it's not a flashy project because
Yeah, it's not sexy.
they're not the most attractive plants. I like them.
it might be 5 to 10 years before something even germinates, and then another 10, 15 years before you get something to this sort of size.
Wow.
And then it might have
So
another
it's
10
all-
years of life before it's, the trees then sort of reach the end of their their healthiness as trees
And
that are growing on.
the Dactylanthis themselves, when they're flowering, the flowers actually release a lot of nectar, quite a significant amount of nectar. So they're sort of quite important food for bats and other potential pollinators. But that nectar is also what makes them so attractive to possums and rats, which cause the damage to them. But they're
Do you have some pictures there of...
yes,
Yeah.
Could you hold it out this way a little bit?
So here's a diagram showing the tuber attached to a host root of the plant, and that was what people would collect back in the day as a curio, because they look interesting. But
Oh, God. Just a second. It's this camera. Here we go. Thank you. Yep.
it's all good. I'll just-
Yeah, that's good.
So then you have some plants are male and some plants are female, and that's one of the problems is that you've got to have both genders of plant in the same population to enable some sort of pollination. And there is the option of hand pollinating as well, but unfortunately you need some female plants to apply the pollen to get them to actually produce seed. So usually you can only distinguish if they're male or female when they're flowering or fruiting. So you've got the male flowers. When they open up, you'll often see a lot of this white pale sort of pollen that comes through, whereas the females are often sort of a darker, they almost look like the furry feet of spiders that come out, and they're to receive the pollen from the male.
So do the females make the seed
Yes.
and the males
Yeah.
got the stamen or whatever?
So on the back, the female inflorescences, once if they've been pollinated, they'll produce the seed, and the seeds are very tiny. They're kind of about the size of sesame seeds, sort of poppy seed maybe. They're quite small.
Poppy seed.
They're really small. Quite a dark red colour, and there's not a lot of nutritional value in them for anything to eat, so they're not really prime tucker for anything. But then if they've got a lot of, if they've been well pollinated, they can actually produce quite a lot of seed per flower. So that's really promising. So you don't actually need, to harvest an entire population worth of seed. You could just grab a few infructescences to
so
get
there
the seed
is
that you
some
need.
banked in a seed bank somewhere for you to be able to.
Well, we'd have
necessarily.
we'd have to get some fresh seed from a local population. I think that would be able to hopefully provide some female companionship for these guys.
That'd be the logical approach to get fresh seed from a population that's doing well, and there's only a few populations that are doing well around. There's only one there's none in this area, and there's one 100k away.
So there's a wee robin there.
Could there be in other places such as on Tauhara, close by?
Yes.
Could there be populations?
Yes,
It's entirely
because no
possible.
one goes there very much. There's no paths there, and it's
Yeah.
too steep for hunters. So that's it does get part of it. It does get hunted, but a lot of the flanks are really steep. So
It'd be worth looking. I don't know if people have checked there previously, but
So normally
really
the
worth
approach
having a
is,
look.
have a dog trained up to be able to smell them when they're out
it's not
flowering.
it's not the normal approach, but it'd be a really good
It'd be
approach.
a good approach.
Yes.
They're quite hard to spot.
Otherwise, it's very difficult.
yes,
It's
you
more
can
likely.
walk right past it and think, oh, that's just a bit of moss on a bit of root.
I have that. That's how I found this one. I tripped on it, and then looked down and saw that it looked like it was broken at the time, and I thought, oh well, that's a dead tuber, but we'll keep an eye on it anyway. And then when we came back during flowering season, sort of March, April, we came back and we saw some flowers on it, and they'd been very heavily browsed. You could see they'd been eaten by rats and pulled off. They've broken away from the plant by possums.
And
So
this
are
was
these
just while
flowers-
it's being caged?
Yes,
Right.
and then we caged it, and then next year, flowers, beautiful.
Oh, okay.
So it's made a big difference just having the cage over it.
No.
So these are the seed heads. Once they've got the seeds have fallen off these, they just look like little twigs. Whereas these ones have been eaten. You can see that there's no stalks, seed stalks left on those at all. And then we had the one that we saw earlier where it hadn't even opened. The inside had been eaten probably by a rodent before it even got to that stage.
Should we wander on and look at another couple of ones?
Okay, here. Oh, okay.
Oh, so this is a previously recorded plant which has been died. So you can see now it's starting to decay. The tuber has become very open and just rotting away slowly. Oops, I'll take that away.
Thank you.
So it's really deteriorating. So usually you'd see sort of the tuber would be fairly fresh and firm, where in this case it's getting fairly soft and fragile and pieces are just breaking off. This is one that had been caged with galvanized chicken mesh back in the day, which is good at excluding browsers, but it also excludes pollinators and potentially risks leaching zinc from the galvanized mesh, which can cause problems for the host plant as well.
So do you think that may have contributed to...
Oh, it would be impossible to say. Some of these plants are, the trees are getting quite old, and you can see now like Remu is starting to grow up in here, which is great because it shows the bush is maturing, but at the same time it's not a suitable host species for the Dactylanthis, so it's not great for the Dactylanthis, but good to see that it's appearing. We should see more as we go. Oh, and a pointer behind. Gloves on.
It's the first time I have seen Remu plants, baby Remu plants.
Oh, yes.
I haven't seen those before. In the bush.
It's a female. Remu.
How can you tell?
It's soft. So when you pull your hands down the things, you can feel it's really soft. So it's female Remu.
I didn't know that.
This big broadleaf here.
So this one looks like it's still alive over here.
It's cute.
So these were caged 30 years ago. So we'll look at that when they're flowering, and we wouldn't have seen any.
I've got records to see which ones were covered, but I couldn't remember if it was that one.
Yeah.
It was actually a new one that we covered. He was flowering, which was good.
So you've got
That one is
potential
flowering.
cages already for females to grow up through.
Yes, well, I mean, the good thing with the old cages is it identifies where plants once were and potentially have left seeds in the soil. So it's possible that other plants may come up in that area over time. So even if the original plant has died that was under the cage, does mean that it was potential seed bank in the soil. So it's
that's
useful.
the rationale for leaving the cages.
Yeah, and you know what was there, and potentially it's protecting something else that might be coming up, or might come up nearby, like the one that we just saw, or this guy here, which is the new cage. And he was one that hadn't been identified previously, so he'd obviously come up since.
So you think it's coming off this tree here?
Potentially off this big
Quite an old
linear.
tree, though, ain't it?
Yeah.
It's not a young tree.
No.
I'd say that would be.
Which would be why some of those ones are
Potentially on its way out. Yeah, there's not a lot of life left in the tree.
I guess this is a good example of why I'm trying to keep on track and not wander around too much. We don't want to do anything off the track.
Yeah, because this one is one that I found probably about 3 years ago. And it's,
You found it? Did you two?
Yeah, hunting for
Wow.
obviously with the dock people. So you can see it's actually quite extensive. So it's quite a good tuber, that one, because you can actually see it. It's attached to the host root. And that one's actually had a few good flowers last year when we saw it. So I was really pleased to find it. Protect that one.
November for flowering and then
No.
March for seed.
Other way.
So March for seed for flowering. And then
And so there've been a few down the bank as well. There's a few more cages, but nothing in them. But we're leaving the cages in case there's more coming up. But it's good to kind of have a look at the roots in this area. There's things that kind of look like potential tubers coming up.
so you only look at these ones.
Older one. I would say that was one back in the day that's got the right shape. I think that might have been an old tuber as well. But as you can see, the tree's really struggling to hang on. So as soon as this tree dies, these plants will all die as well. Which is a shame because they're actually looking quite good, even though we don't have any females there to get seed from. It's possible that there might be some seed out in the wider area that might hopefully find a tree to live on.
You want to talk about Ken
Fun here.
Oh yeah, I've heard about
Blood of fighters in her veins. She grabbed the gun from her trembling son and blew out Billy's brains. Woohoo! The hand across the cradle put Billy on his back. Nevermore will he snort and roar by the wire.